Hello and welcome. When I was a lot younger, I used to use professional journalistic reviews to determine whether or not a game was going to be good or bad. A lot of the time, it saved my butt because it prevented me from playing some truly bad games like SimCity 2013. But other times, I missed out on some pretty fun games just because the journalists didn't like it. Case in point, Assassin's Creed Bloodlines. When I first picked it up, I thought it was going to be terrible because of the reviews, and after playing it for about 10 minutes, my fears were justified and I sold the game off. But recently, I was able to pick it up for not much. And when I started playing beyond the first 10 minutes, I started to realize that this was actually a pretty good game. So let's take a look at it and see what I missed. Check out Robota Peed from us at 16-Bit Games. It's a simple top-down shooter where you shoot at the Robota Peed before it has a chance to get to the bottom. Watch out for the disruptor and aim for a high score. It's available for free on Android and iOS, so check it out today. What the critics didn't like about Assassin's Creed Bloodlines was that it had a small world, it has repetitive gameplay, poor controls, poor sounds, and a weak story. So let's actually stop and take a look at each of those points and to see if they are as bad as the critics pointed out, or maybe they are good. Firstly, Assassin's Creed Bloodlines is not a tiny game for the PSP. It's actually quite big. You have two full cities to explore, Limassol and Kyrenia. And yes, it's on an island called Cyprus, and yes, there's loadings in the middle, but it's still pretty big. But it is tiny when you compare it to Assassin's Creed. It's minuscule when you actually compare it to it. But this isn't on a console. This is on the PSP. And when you bring yourself back down to that level and you compare it with games like Grand Theft Auto, it's actually quite big. But the surprising thing is, it's big, but it runs smoothly. It's a very nice game to look at. And because of this consistency, it actually helps with the gameplay. Kryptonite Games managed to squeeze everything that was in the first Assassin's Creed game, from scaling buildings to towers to combat. It's all here, which means that if you like the first Assassin's Creed game, you're going to love this game. But if you're like me and you found the first game gets very repetitive, then Bloodlines is going to also be quite repetitive. But a benefit of Bloodlines is that it is on a PlayStation Portable, meaning that play sessions are much smaller and the repetitiveness doesn't sink in as quickly as it does on the consoles. Now, what Kryptonite Games couldn't bring over is the controls. Just because of the funny way the PSP is set up, you do lose that second analog stick. But they managed to find a way to maintain camera controls by pressing the shoulder button and moving around the face buttons, but it isn't as precise as an analog stick. Fortunately, the automatic camera that's included in this game is perfect. Honestly, I never felt the need to adjust the camera. When I did, I was able to do it without issue, and recentering the camera works perfectly. So, honestly, I had no issues with these controls. The camera's the only thing that's wonky about it, but even then, it still works. But what doesn't work is the sounds. Unfortunately, the sounds are compressed, the music is short, meaning that you hear a lot of sound bites repeated and a lot of music repeated. And that repetition is just annoying after a long play session. And with that in mind, it's not bad, it does its job. But I do wish it was done better. Finally, we have the story, the most crucial part of any Assassin's Creed game. And Assassin's Creed Bloodline has a very good story, and for two good reasons. Firstly, the lead writer of Assassin's Creed Bloodlines is Darby McDevitt, who was the same lead writer for Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. And you can feel his influence throughout the entire game, which leads us to the second reason why this is such a brilliant story, is they allow him to focus on the characters inside the game, inside the Animus. You're not focused on Desmond and his struggles, you're focusing purely on the in-game characters. In this case, it's Altair. We're not following Ezio, we're not following anyone else, we're just following Altair. And with that focus, it allows us to get more attached to Altair, and as well correct the biggest problem with the first Assassin's Creed game. Altair is as interesting as a doorstop in the first game, and in this game, you can see his thoughts, you can see his motivations, you can see why he's doing what he's doing, and you believe in it. The only thing that brings the story down is its length. It's sadly a very short story, but if it was just a little bit longer, it probably could compete with one of the better Assassin's Creed game stories out there, at least in my view. Assassin's Creed Bloodlines is a good PSP game, but is a hard game to recommend nowadays because there have released better portable Assassin's Creed games, and because of the advancements in hardware, you can now play the original Assassin's Creed series on the go on even a very weak laptop. As a result, Assassin's Creed Bloodline is sadly left to the sidelines, and is only good for those who are really interested in the Assassin's Creed games and wants to know as much as possible about the game's backstory, or if you are a fan of the PSP and you want a really good adventure game or a really good open world game. So if that sounds like your fancy, I'd recommend it. But if you're on the wall with it, this is a game that you can skip, but it's still a good game. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and take care.